Sup, you beautiful bastards? Hope you're having a fantastic Thursday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing we're going to talk about today, by far one of the most requested stories of the day today, is CNN is shutting down Beam. Casey Neistat's leaving. This is huge news in the news ecosystem. This was supposed to be CNN's big play to get younger viewers. Obviously, there was a tech angle. Also, some background for those who aren't familiar. Massively popular creator Casey Neistat, around 14 months ago, sold his company Beam to CNN for an estimated $25 million. So there was a lot of money behind it. There was a lot of hype around it. You might remember that Hollywood Reporter cover. You got Jeff Zucker, Jake Tapper, Casey Neistat on the cover, CNN's new war. Well, what Beam was trying to accomplish at this point was confusing. It seemed like there were mainly two fronts: the tech front and the actual video production front. On the video front, Beam News seemingly had some moderate success. They brought on the fantastic Jake Groper, aka Vsauce 3. Their last 4 videos have gotten between 106,000 and 184,000 views. And on the tech side, they had Beam Panels, which was supposed to incorporate some sort of viewer-audience interaction. They also reportedly have an unreleased live news app called Wire. And as far as why this deal wasn't working, Casey Neistat did an interview with BuzzFeed, and it was incredibly candid. Casey reportedly saying, "I couldn't find answers. I would sort of disappear and I would hide, and I would make YouTube videos for my channel because at least I would be able to yield something. I don't think I'm giving CNN what I want to give them, and I don't think they're getting value from me." Now, while incredibly honest, that explanation rubs some people the wrong way. This seeming to come from Beam having a 22-person team. Some people reportedly will be absorbed by CNN, but some people are going to lose jobs. And so there you have people who had been working there before Beam was acquired, people who were then brought on afterwards, and you had essentially a leader that was saying they were trying to hide away. And in situations like this, that's who I ultimately always feel bad for, the employees. Because there are people right now trashing Casey Neistat, saying he's a failure because of this. And to that I would say, I think most people wished they could fail like Casey Neistat failed. I mean, really think about it. Casey Neistat launched an app that ultimately ended up being a failure. He then, just from his position in the YouTube community, and also Jeff Zucker's son apparently having been a fan of Casey Neistat and telling his dad about him, sold said failed app company to CNN for, once again, a reported estimated $25 million in a contract that would have most likely locked him down for a good amount of time, and just 14 months after the deal was done, he's out. I'm just saying, I wish my failures looked like that. Now, as far as what's next for Casey, in a video where he announced this, but then he removed it, and then he announced it, and then he removed it, he said that he's not ready to share that.
Matt and I personally are going to move on to what? I don't know, and I'm not ready to announce that yet.
And as far as people asking my opinion on this story, I will say I like Casey Neistat. I consider him a friend, despite us having very different opinions on a lot of things. But what I really think this situation shows us is you can't just throw money at something and expect it to work. You have to have the right people, and when it comes to news, you need someone that is passionate about it, that is their number one thing all the time. Even if you hire fantastic, dedicated people, if the head is sick, you're gonna lose the body too. And that's where I'm gonna end it. I hope that you understand what I'm talking about. The last thing I want this to sound like is I'm shit talking, because I really do believe that if Casey throws himself into something that he is genuinely passionate about, there's no way it doesn't succeed. But all of that said, I want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts here? Expected it? It was a surprise? What does it make you think about CNN or Casey? Let me know in those comments down below. From that, I want to share some stuff I love today, and today in Awesome, brought to you by DeFrancoElite.com. DeFranco Elite, if you do not know, is our paid subscription service. It supports what we're doing here, what we've been building, the new shows we are about to launch. As a subscriber, you get exclusive content, exclusive live streams, early content. There's a decent amount now, but with the new shows we're launching, there's about to be a lot more. It's also the only place you can get our quarterly exclusive posters and our mugs. Those two are going away forever at the end of January. There's coupon codes, exclusive Discords, all the good stuff. If you want to check it out, sign up, go to DeFrancoElite.com. Then we got an awesome video from Seeker on how NASA engineers use origami to design future spacecraft. We've got Jaden Animation showing us how to make life more interesting. Life Noggin answering the question, what if you never ate fruits and vegetables? A new Pacific Rim Uprising trailer with YouTuber Melinda Reese rapping about YouTubers who don't suck, although I am biased because I am the first person mentioned. We then, surprisingly out of all people, had Burger King making a video in support of net neutrality. And if you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, the secret link of the day, anything at all, links as always are in the description down below. And then let's talk about net neutrality news and updates. The last time we talked about net neutrality was back in mid-December when the FCC had revoked the 2015 rules that protected internet consumers. Net neutrality, of course, the rules or regulation that makes all internet traffic equal. This meaning that your provider wouldn't have been able to favor one website over another. A good example is that many providers want to make Netflix pay more for being able to send data on their network. And with Netflix, it's not even a hypothetical situation. We've covered stories in the past where Netflix traffic was being throttled. And as much as I'm about the government getting out of the way, allowing the free market to decide, the way that ISPs are set across the United States, very few people have options. Many Americans have the choice of just one ISP for their area, others are limited to 2, other places that are lucky get multiple. And so effectively in most of the United States, there are monopolies and duopolies in regions. The free market can't really prevail when the laws make it so that these things are allowed to exist in this manner, right? So if Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, they decide to change things, you can't go, well, I'm leaving, I'm gonna use this other ISP that's not a dick. Instead, you'd have to go, that's not cool, I'm either gonna deal with it or just not have access to the internet. But thanks to Ajit Pai, who was part of the 3-2 vote in the FCC, those rules were revoked, with Pai stating, under my proposal, the federal government will stop micromanaging the internet. ISPs claim that the increased traffic, but not the increased pay to them from these websites, was slowing down their ability to properly maintain and implement infrastructure. As I mentioned then, it wasn't a completely done deal, and we were going to see fights across America. And that's what we're seeing. We saw Senator Chuck Schumer claiming that he would propose legislation that would bring net neutrality back. Also, thanks to Republican Susan Collins joining his side in the Senate, they had enough votes, but it still will not likely happen. Even if it passed in the Senate, the Republican-controlled House would very likely shoot it down. And that's without talking about whether President Trump would sign it or not. In addition to that, we saw 22 state and DC attorney generals having filed lawsuits fighting the rule change. We've also seen many states promising to protect consumers and reinstate net neutrality rules. California has introduced legislation trying to protect net neutrality. States such as North Carolina, Illinois, they are considering doing the same. Also this week, we saw big news from New York and Montana. Governor Steve Bullock, Andrew Cuomo signing nearly identical executive actions that would force ISPs to follow net neutrality rules. If the ISPs don't, they risk losing their contracts. Reportedly, New York initially had plans to introduce legislation like California, but then Cuomo decided that this executive action, like what was happening in Montana, that would be a faster and better bet. That said, both states will have the new rules be for all new and renewed contracts starting March 1st in New York and July 1st in Montana. Bullock saying in regard to this move, if you want to do business with Montana, there are standards on net neutrality you will have to follow. And Cuomo stating, the FCC's dangerous ruling goes against the core values of our democracy, and New York will do everything in our power to protect net neutrality and the free exchange of ideas. With this executive order, we reaffirm our commitment to freedom and democracy and help ensure that the internet remains free and open to all. And this will affect almost all the largest ISPs. We've got Charter, CenturyLink, AT&T, Verizon, Frontier, Xfinity. But, of course, like with everything in this situation, it's a little more complicated. The FCC has attempted to preempt this action by having new rules in place which say the states can't enact their own net neutrality rules. And the reason that's complicated is while the FCC can take preemptive action, there are some limitations to it. And an example of that is in 2016, the FCC lost a court case where they attempted to stop states from blocking expansions of municipal broadband networks, thus proving that the FCC's ability to preempt states isn't all that powerful. And the states are arguing that their new rules are well within their power of procurement. And what they're saying there is because they are a state, they can demand regulations and negotiations for contracts, which then leads to the confusion whether the FCC's preemptive actions can apply to the state's ability to negotiate a contract. Then we saw what appeared to be AT&T trying to have a Darth Vader redemption moment. News came out that AT&T called for net neutrality rules to be passed by Congress. Their CEO, Randall Stephenson, saying, AT&T is committed to an open internet. We don't block websites, we don't censor online content, and we don't throttle, discriminate, or degrade network performance based on content, period. Adding, the commitment of one company is not enough. Congressional action is needed to establish an Internet Bill of Rights that applies to all internet companies and guarantees neutrality, transparency, openness, non-discrimination, and privacy protection for all internet users. And continuing with, such legislations would not only ensure consumer rights are protected, but it would provide consistent rules of the road for all internet companies across all websites, content, devices, and applications. So is this Vader killing Palpatine? It doesn't really look like it. Many experts saying that this looks sneaky. People pointing out that Stephenson is actually calling for regulations across ISPs, content devices, websites, and applications. And that stands out because the old rules only apply to the ISPs, not including all the other things that Stephenson listed, and that's because they operate in a fundamentally different way. Additionally, the statement only disagrees with blocking and throttling, but not paid prioritization or data cap exemption. And this is something AT&T already does with their mobile services. So it's not crazy to assume that they want that opening for a reason. As I've mentioned in videos where we've discussed net neutrality over the past few years, the way that ISPs will do this, and not initially, but the way they will throttle and discriminate against content is paid prioritization. They're not slowing or throttling other content. It's just that the content from companies that they own or companies that have paid them will get the better speed. Maybe we'll start seeing more data caps, but if you use this company that they also happen to own, it doesn't go towards your data cap. People start feeling like they're getting perks, special access, but what's actually happening is they're getting fucked. And in response to this announcement from AT&T, pro net neutrality group Internet Association Association, which also represents a huge amount of websites, issued a statement saying, "It is impossible to believe that AT&T is serious when they have such a long track record opposing consumer protections like net neutrality. We support strong, enforceable net neutrality rules, which were consumer protections on the books until AT&T and their allies had their way." And with all of that said, that is where we are today. There are still fights on many fronts, some futile, some very complicated. Also, there's a possibility that this could have an impact on the 2018 election, but an important thing to note there is it's just one of many factors. But for now, we have to wait and see. And then let's talk about this horrifying situation in Cape Town, South Africa. Now, South Africa is one of the top 50 driest countries, and they are considered a water-scarce region. So much so that in Cape Town, there have been restrictions on water usage in place since at least 2005. And that already bad situation has been made so much worse by the worst drought in over a century, which began back in 2015 and is still ongoing. In June of last year, Cape Town implemented a level 4 drought restriction. This limiting water usage to 26 gallons per person per day. September, it pops up to level 5. January 1st of this year, it goes to level 6. That's a limit of 23 gallons per person. And on last Thursday, they announced level 6B set for February 1st. This will limit water usage to 13 gallons per day per person. And that number is pretty scary. 13 gallons, that's 50 liters. According to the World Health Organization, 50 liters a day is the minimum needed for a person to meet their basic needs. Also, to draw a comparison to make you realize how little water that is, the average American uses 80 to 100 gallons a day, so 379 liters. And as far as what comes next, the next thing is day 0. And day 0 is what they're calling the day that water storage is at 13.5%. When that happens, all the taps will be shut off except the ones to hospitals. At this point, there will be 200 locations where people will be able to get 25 liters per day per person, which I don't even think I'm being cynical here. That is going to be a disaster. You're talking between 3.7 to 4 million people with only 200 points of access. And to make things worse for those hospitals, the 13.5% sounds like a good amount just for one place. Reportedly, the last 10% of stored water is unusable in reservoirs due to silt and debris. Now, when is day 0? Well, according to Cape Town officials, that was going to be April 22nd until Monday, where officials announced that day 0 is now April 12th. And reportedly, the reason for this change is people are just not meeting their water usage goals. It was reported last week only 41% of people in Cape Town were meeting it. And according to Mayor Patricia DeLille, the people who are still wasting water seem to believe that day 0 just can't happen, or that the city's 7 augmentation projects set to produce around 200 million liters per day will be enough to save us. This is not the case, and while our water augmentation program will make Cape Town more water resilient in the future, it was never going to be enough to stop day 0. Now, as far as what she's referencing there, Cape Town has 7 projects currently being worked on to secure alternative water sources. 4 of those are desalination plants, with 3 behind schedule, 2 are groundwater drilling efforts, with both behind schedule, and 1 is a water recycling facility, and you may have guessed it, it's behind schedule. Additionally, there are other city projects, but they are still in the planning phases. And as you might expect, we're also seeing a black market pop up for water. Reportedly, people are already hoarding and selling plastic containers for water, as well as water itself. So people stocking up for themselves, and also people looking to make money from this situation, are probably contributing to the current problem. And right now, the big question mark for this situation is what happens once day 0 is here? It doesn't appear that the drought is going to end anytime soon, and so does that mean people will leave? Are we about to see mass migration? When you have this level of drought, of course, that lends itself to fires, but once it does finally rain, that lends itself to flooding. Also, there's concern from experts that if it is dry for far too long, the pipes that actually carry the water will begin to crack, and very quickly it's changing from a question of what then to what now, and we'll have to wait and see. Then in a story that's definitely not connected, the doomsday clock, the symbolic clock set up by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists that is meant to show us how close we are to a worldwide catastrophe, is now set to 2 minutes to midnight, 30 seconds closer to midnight than last year. This is the closest it's been to global midnight since 1953, but that was also at the height of the Cold War. This, according to the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, because in 2017 we saw reckless language in the nuclear realm heat up already dangerous situations, and relearned that minimizing evidence-based assessments regarding climate and other global challenges does not lead to better public policies. Also, an additional point they made that's getting a lot less coverage is emerging technologies and global risks. Writing, the Science and Security Board is deeply concerned about the loss of public trust in political institutions, in the media, in science, and in facts themselves. Mentioning sophisticated hacking operations, the spread of disinformation, writing corporate leaders in the information domain, including established media outlets and internet companies such as Facebook and Google, have been slow to adopt protocols to prevent misuse of their services and protect citizens from manipulation. And there's really not an end to this story. The document does contain some of their recommendations on how to make things better, but they're scientists. People don't listen to them for some reason. And so I guess let's just end on the very happy note that it's not just in your head. It is a very scary time. There is reason for concern, and I know that I normally try and end my shows with a silver lining, even if things are bad, but sometimes it's good to just stare at the problem and really acknowledge it. And that's actually where I want to end today's show. And remember, if you liked this video, you like what I try and do on this channel, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Make sure sure you don't miss these daily videos, which actually, if you did miss yesterday's show, you want to catch up, click or tap right there to watch that. Or if you want to watch the newest behind the scenes vlog, click or tap right there to watch that. But that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.